Welcome viewers and listeners to another edition of Globespan 24x7, owned and operated by Mr. Nohar Singh of Globespan Travel and other companies. With us tonight is our technical advisor, Mr. Devin Bissoon. Tonight's topic, we are discussing political developments in Guyana, as well as a political update in New York City electoral contest that took place last week, Tuesday. The two are not related, except for some of the candidates running for office in New York are of Guyanese and Caribbean origin. In fact, quite a number of Guyanese are in the electoral fray, and those who are not in the electoral fray are supporting candidates who are in the electoral fray. Not just Guyanese candidates, but American and West Indian candidates as well. Tonight, we have three very distinguished personalities in Guyana. We have Mr. Henry Jeffrey, who is no stranger to Guyana's politics. He has been a former lecturer, a former principal, a former minister, a former diplomat, and these days, or I should say for the last 15 years or so, he has been a newspaper columnist, commentator for the well-respected and established Starbuck News. Joining him will be Mr. Adam Harris, who is also no stranger to politics, although in a different capacity. He has been a reporter, journalist, media analyst, specialist for almost 50 years. Mr. Adam Harris served as editor-in-chief of the Guyana Chronicle, as well as Kaicho News. And these recent years, I don't know where he's editor-in-chief, but I'm sure he's doing something along that line in one of the media houses. But he is a very competent and able political analyst, and he will also be giving his views. And then we have a youngster with us, Dr. Josh Kanhai, who is relatively new to politics, but he was involved in political development last year in the election. I'm not sure, were you a candidate, Josh, last year?
I was actually for the New Movement.
Okay, he was at TNM, and these days you are with the?
Well, I've left TNM due to circumstances, and I've opted to go with the URP, the United Republican Party.
Okay, so welcome, and thank you for joining us this evening, yourself, Dr. Josh Kanhai, as well as the other two esteemed gentlemen. So tonight, again, as I introduced at the beginning, we're discussing political developments in Guyana. And if I may begin, for no specific reason, I want to talk about what some may call the political explosion within the PNC. So I wonder if Dr. Henry Jeffrey, if you could give us an update, what's happening there in the PNC camp? Why these sudden recent resignations from the party?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting me on your program. I am not certain that I can give a definitive answer to these questions, but it is a normal situation when political parties are out of power, when they've lost government. There are always reasons and people who are quarreling one way or another about the reasons for that being so. Generally, though, I think that if you want to pinpoint one reason why there's an implosion in the PNC, you must point to the way business has been done recently in the PNC, in sense of how the people that will be MPs were chosen, and so on. And it seemed to me that it was not what I will call what we will expect from a modern democratic party, that you will expect a level of openness, a level of discourse, that the leader and whatsoever would try to convince others that this is the way to go. We have seen this recently again in the PNC, where you have had an effort to bring some small parties into the coalition. The PNC, after all, is the largest party and is essentially the coalition. And therefore, you would have thought that all of this would have been discussed, and the whole process. By that I mean why these parties, why you're bringing them in, why you're not looking to the ones that have been there and has left largely for an autocratic kind of a behavior. So essentially, it's a question of leadership at that level. And I believe it would be fair for me to say that that has been a central reason for this kind of implosion in the in the coalition and the PNC. But I am placing that as a specific issue within the context that when parties are out of government or lost government, there's always a background noise going on about who is wrong and who ain't wrong and all that and so on. So that would be my contention.
Adam Harris, a senior journalist, what's your take on what are these issues about? You could also tell us what are the issues within the PNC, and why? Why do they have these issues?
Again, I would support Mr. Jeffrey, and it has always happened. For example, more recently, we had two people. One was Minister of Public Service, who left the coalition, formed the party, and went back into the coalition. I think people are juggling for political space. People want to, as Dr. Jeffrey said, people want to be able to have a voice. For example, one, Mr. Hopkinson, he claimed that there was a lot of dictatorial things going on. He didn't specify, but you get the impression that things were happening without consultation. And some of the people who are in the party feel, well, we were rubber stamps, we're not being consulted. So they would go out. What would happen down the road, I suspect, is that come election, people move back. The present Dr. Kanhai, for example, he isn't supporting the PPP for one reason or other. And there are many now in the PNC who would move away not supporting it. But come election time, they are going to look to place their support somewhere. And my feeling is that they are going to go back to the coalition under one guise or another, either as a political party or as a backbencher.
You mentioned he left because of authoritarian tendencies. Does he have a real issue there? Is there any gripe to that complaint?
In a sense, look, two people left the other day. What's her name?
McAllister?
And she formed a party and then we heard,
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, you're right.
No, and then she formed the party and goes back into the coalition. And she's saying to everybody, I am not going to listen to the leadership of the PNC. I have my party, and I am going to have a say on behalf of my party within the coalition. Now, the fact that she went back into the coalition, and there are members, some of them diehard, who were there before, claim that they weren't notified of this new addition, so to speak. So in that sense, yes, they are claiming it's dictatorial. You didn't ask us. You didn't even notify us. But then you announced that these two people are here. That's more or less dictatorial.
Professor Jeffrey, you agree? I mean, do they have legitimate reason for their gripes?
But I just answered your question, I thought, when I said that that's the reason for their going, their belief that not their belief.
No, but what's your assessment? That's their assessment.
That's my assessment. I mean, I'm assessing, I have assessed their belief, and it is the outcome is there for you to see. They are quarreling because X did not happen. And there was consultation of numerous processes. And this must be very troubling for a political party going down the road. And you just can't sit there and do things all by yourself. And this is a tendency that has been there for some time. The president then and now leader of the PNC and so on. What happened when he was appointing what was the director of the energy sector? Apparently, people wake up one morning and already appoint a director of the energy sector, although there were people there looking and considering who should be appointed. Now, it's a tendency, maybe it is due to his upbringing, the army, and so on, you know. But even there nowadays, you have to discuss. You can't just go and fight a war without all your lieutenants with you. Now, so there is a real problem. There's a real problem, and it seems to me that it's not a problem of that can be easily overcome. It's a problem that it's a matter of socialization. It's a way of doing business over decades. So yes, one would hope that people can change their behavior all the time, change their behavior, change their views and all that. That's fine. Nobody should hold on to the same behavior and views if new information come to them. But there are certain things that appear so ingrained that they are difficult things to overcome. And so I believe, yes, they do have a major problem. I had to point out that in my little article, this is in Village Voice, last week, I had to point out that in the 1950s, when Burnham was attempting to join with the UDP, remember the PNC and the PPP thought that at that time they came out of great socialist backgrounds, and the result was that the PNC thought that the UDP was after middle-class African people and they didn't want to join. So they didn't join in 57, and when it come to 51, they said they wouldn't join again, and Burnham said, if you don't join, I will have to leave. I will have to leave. I leave the party and I leave the country, because you need coalition to move forward in the kind of politics we are. And fortunately or unfortunately, they joined and the PNC was able to move to government. So these things happen. It's part of the process, and one hopes that people can change, but it's a hard push.
Let's hear from the young man, Dr. Josh Kanhai. What's your view? What's your assessment?
Good night.
Of what's happening in the PNC?
Right. Well, I've been looking on. I've been, as I say, watching the big ones. And the gentleman, the well-established gentleman, has put forward that there have been several issues within that camp. And as you guys know, I would have formed TNM. I think Mr. Harris said I was a part of PPP, but I wasn't. I was TNM. And we were third party. And as you know, I would have left, as I explained earlier. And the reasons I left, it was because of the same lack of leadership, lack of structure, lack of a will to move forward, and lack of a will to have an open mind. And it's the same issues we are seeing when it comes to child's play. There's, again, I see from what these two gentlemen are explaining, that there's, one, a lack of leadership. That is a very important part. And leadership they have to show some sort of empathy, not only empathy, but they have to show some sort of will to listen to others and not move ahead with decisions on their own, or decisions with a chosen few from the executive, right? There are protocols that are set up in the Constitution that I'm sure the PNCR would have established when they would have made coalitions, and when they would have decided to bring all these coalitions, and they would have had their own Constitution and bylaws that they had to follow. And it seems that those bylaws and Constitution are not even being kept or kept at heart, right? So coming from such a large party as they call themselves, and such a old, well, not, I wouldn't say old, but I'd say mature party coming out for 50 plus years, I expect better. Now, some recommendations I would have for them is that you guys well, not you guys, but the PNCR, they have to let the youths go forward. They have to let the youths come forward, and they have to let the youth speak, right? There is always the place whereby you have to see where there's a light at the end of the tunnel, you would say, and you would have to let go of certain responsibilities or certain powers, and you'd have to give it up to a younger generation that is more vibrant and more modern, I would say, or technologically advanced, etc. And in their mind, in their mindset, and in their thinking, and they're very much open-minded. And I would have had a few interactions with them at the recount as well, some of the youths, and they were youths who wanted to do something. So I would say let them put forward youths, more of the youths, and not try to stifle themselves and try to break their own rules that they would have set up, right? So definitely, I would say good luck to that camp, and hopefully things work out for them. But it's not a good representation, and it's not a good image as the what you guys say is the main opposition, right?
So Professor Jeffrey and Adam Harris, clearly it's not a problem that exists within the PNC, as this young man indicated. It's in the TNM, but probably in the other parties as well. Do you wish to comment on that? I mean, is there similar jostling and fighting, lack of democracy in other political movements as well?
Of course. Who will educate the educators, Bish? I mean, we are all brought up in a highly autocratic system. Most of us have not left this place, and some of us who have left went to even more autocratic countries in which to live. Karl Marx's contention of who will educate the educators that you want, who will do this with the new generation. TNM, that he was in our group of young people. But what we have seen, same kind of approaches, because we are socialized into it. I'm telling you, it's not a simple thing. We, in a sense, if we live in a structure too, that encourages it, a structure of total competition, a structure that fights for power, a structure that when you win, you want everything. If you live in that structure, it encourages this kind of thing that is not appropriate for our kind of society, and the young people do almost the same thing as the old. It's not that certainly I don't have anything against young people. When I became involved in politics and holding to certain political power, quite young, as a matter of fact. So I agree that people can do things at any age. But at the same time, Burnham and Jagan was 27, 28, about that time, 30 years of age when they first hit power. And what Jagan called it, why he was out of power, he said it was youthful exuberance. What about Bart? Bart was young, wasn't it? And what's happened in Guyana since? Look where we are. I mean,
so yeah, socialized.
Let's be real. It's a socializing process, and you have to have structures in place to try to deal with it. It's not just give it to the youth, because the youth, look how the youth voted the last time, my friend. So don't let us not forget all of this and just think it's a matter of young people and old people. Yes, space. I think space is there for everybody in all these political parties. The truth is that you have to look at the structure of your governance, and then see how you can what you can do within that to help to build another kind of individual. That would happen because there would be no need for the educator. The system itself would show you that you got to compromise, you got to discourse, you need not fight, you need not go down that road.
Adam?
Yes, I agree in part with what Dr. Jeffrey said. And I mean, even if we go back and let's look at the PPP, another mature party, according to Dr. Josh, they had their own fighting that actually saw Kamraj Ramjatan, Moses Nagamoto, the former speaker, Mr.
Karan,
yes, or leaving. In two instances, the case of Moses and Dr. Ramkaran, they both felt that they were qualified to be leaders, and they felt that they were being ignored and that the party wasn't listening to them. You know, one good thing about that, though, is that within the Central Committee, there was a discussion. Whether people were browbeaten or not is entirely out of the question. In the case of the PNC, and they will tell you, well, COVID, we couldn't have the assembly and all of that. There was no open discussion where people could vent their feelings, where the leadership could attempt to convince some of those people who have now left. There was no such forum. So, as Dr. Jeffrey said, it's an age-old problem. It's always been there. You're out of power. People see things happening. They feel that something should be done. This should be done. Let's do it this way. The old heads in the party will say no. And obviously, you know, young people, youthful exuberance, they're going to get angry and they're going to feel not disillusion, but they're going to feel that, look, we're wasting our time. So they would walk. But as I said, the time will come when they will come back. They will come back.
Dr. Josh Kanhai?
Right. So, yeah, definitely. I think we pointed out, all three of us pointed out the major problem in the entire situation, and that is not who fills the space, but it's the structure and the way we carry out or the way we work that structure itself. And definitely, you would have given examples of young leaders and what they would have accomplished, and they're all accomplished. There's no doubt about that, right? We would have seen quite a few young leaders coming out in the last election, and not only young, but in the mix were very mature fellas as well, speaking out for Guyana's democracy. Because what we would have faced in that recount center and then the Ashman's building was another story, where we saw the same old tactics and the same old issues surfacing again, and it wasn't a very pleasant one. And that's when we found a voice, and we had to speak out, and we had to make sure that our democracy was kept intact. Right? It was kept intact, and many would disagree, but I want to challenge them that, hey, the no confidence, sorry, not the no confidence motion, but the election petitions, what has happened to them? There is nothing to prove, right? The SOPs have not been surfaced yet, and persons are itching and probably fighting within themselves in that party to put these things out in truth. But there's a lot of secrecies and a lot of lies that are being covered up, and brainwashing going on among there. So it's something that they have to fix. I'm not going to tell them how to fix it, but they seem to know the problem for 50 years, so maybe they can start working on a solution.
Do they know the problems?
Well, two very mature gentlemen would have stated the core problem, which I firmly agree. There's a structure there. There's an organizational structure. There's a bylaws and there are constitutions to follow, but they're not being followed, and it's stifling them. They're stifling themselves. I would say shooting themselves in the foot even.
The concept of leadership came up, so I just if I may stick to that point for a little longer, the PNC is due to have elections and maybe executive elections, and there have been a number of candidates who announced that they are going to challenge the incumbent. I do incumbent David Granger will seek re-election. In all likelihood, he would. I believe, is it Aubrey Norton has announced his intention to seek the leadership. I don't know who else.
Richard Van der Charles.
Any of you? Okay. Go ahead, Adam. Give us an update on that. Van der Charles is also seeking leadership.
That's right. He announced his intention to contest. There is Valda Lawrence, who believes that she should be there.
This is for leadership or chairperson?
No, this is the leadership. They call the chairmanship of the party. And the chairman of the party is the de facto leader of the party. You know, it has the say, if you want to say, the casting vote. So there are these people who feel that David Granger was not the politician's politician. You know, we had these dogs. We had, you know, in the old days, Dr. Jagan Burnham. Those were the charismatic leaders. When they went out and they spoke, people listened. You know, they could have moved mountains. And when, that was why the parties were so strong. When they passed on, we had no charismatic leader after that. Desmond Hoyt. And then we had Barra Jagdeo, a young man, very aggressive, very assertive. And I remember when Donald Ramotar was the general secretary, the strongest position in the party, and he was advised to hold on to the position. Mrs. Jagan did that, but Donald gave it up. And in so doing, Barra Jagdeo came in, and the general secretary is the party's strong man. And, you know, don't let's fool ourselves. In every single party, the leader is almost untouchable. I remember at an election in the PNC where Raphael Trotman decided that he was going to challenge, I think, Desmond Hoyt for the, and he got nowhere. Nobody, to the best of my knowledge, challenged Dr. Jagdeo, and nobody challenged Burnham. And when it appeared as though a challenge was going to be mounted by Hammy Green, Burnham made the position clear. This will not be an elected position. This will be an appointed position. So the party strongman holds the cards. And these days, the young people have a voice. They don't have to rely on the traditional newspaper and radio. You have social media, and they can go out there and have their voices heard. And they know that. They know that through their social media platform, they can appeal to others. And that's what's happening now within the PNC. These young people have gone out there on their platform and they've made their case clear. Some of them have even been critical of Granger, something that was unheard of with a party attacking the leader. But now, social media is so big that these young people can have a say. The other thing is that in this country, we still need to work for a living. And these young people would say, the party is paying me, so I can say what I like. They tell me to leave, I leave. And that's what's happening at this point. A lot of people, Simona Brooms, she has her own operations. Hopkinson has his own operations, has his own money and all of that. So they don't need the party as such. They don't need it. So they can walk. Simona Brooms also said she was leaving to form her own party. So that's where it is now. A lot of shake-up. But I believe in the end, there will be a settling.
As you mentioned, social media, and as well as the traditional media, a lot of comments, articles appeared calling for President Granger, former president, to resign from the leadership. It's time for him to go. Professor Jeffrey, you want to comment on that, as well as the challenges to the leadership and the executive of the PNC?
Yeah, let me just back up a little bit here and mention something Josh spoke to the nature of that he was out there fighting for democracy and that democracy was maintained and all of that, and the subs have not as yet been come to light and all of that. I just want to point out too that there was after all is said and done, there was a recount process, and that recount process, after it was all done, the GCOM, it was claimed that people who are not in Guyana voted in these elections. Indeed, at the end product is that Mr. Lowenfield claimed that there's some 4,600 people voted in Guyana who was not there. And when in two instances, when the chair of GCOM did send to the police and the other authorities to see if that's so, yes, and they verified that that was so. Now, I'm saying to you that when you're talking about democracy, democracy is not what happens on election day. Nobody, nowadays, it's rarely that people going to try to rig election day. There's a last resort. You rig it long before. In the Maldives, for instance, a country of 500,000 people, do you realize that the Supreme Court overthrew the elections largely because 520,000 people were not supposed to voted? So it's not unusual, because when you go to election with a bloated list, that is the result. So when you're talking about defending democracy and talking about subs, speak to that too. We need to investigate that issue. We need to know how is it possible. When we were being told during the election, I was there, nobody can vote, nobody. You have now in every region in the country, not one. It is a conspiracy. It has to be, whosoever it is, I don't know. But it must be a conspiracy for this to happen when we were being told that nobody can vote. If I listen to Jerry Govaya, nobody, but I know that was nonsense, because I know it was happening on the ground long all the time. The truth is that is there. So when you're doing the investigation into the subs, when you're doing that, you can't run from these numbers, my man. You got to deal with them, or else there will always be a question of legitimacy. Always. It suggests a conspiracy of unknown proportion, and that's only with people voting. Of course, the Americans already know. They know that in 5 minutes, because in about half hour, they pick up the phone, they can tell how many Americans voted in Guyana. So they know already. That's right, they may be writing all sorts of other things. But I'm saying to you that occurred. And I'm saying that just to put what you are saying in some kind of perspective. As to talk about leadership, and as Adam was saying, we gotta look. Who was it? Not Michelle? Somewhere in the somewhere around 1890 something, or somewhere around that 19, just at the turn of the 20th century, argued that these political parties, trade unions, and all these things are oligarchies. Once you get in place, you don't leave. Look at the trade union, look at them. You get there, you control the vote, you control the registrar, you control the agenda, you control all of that, and therefore you control the organization. In Ghana, because of ethnic alliance too, it only make it worse, because now there's not people. Supporters come to you because of ethnicity largely, so you are not scared that you can, chase away people, so to speak. The result is you have become less accountable. And add that to the question of the oligarchic nature of these kinds of organization, and you have what you have. You have leaders who nobody can move if they don't want to move. They control everything. They can't move. So the young people, yes, and that's an important issue today. The media or the social media has loosened some of their grip on this, but institutionally, you have a situation in which they choose everybody who should be parliamentarian. And then they choose everybody who's going to go to parliament in a closed or open, whatever electoral process in our kind of a system. So all of these things got to be thrown in there, thrown into this discourse if you really want a democratic political party to go forward.
Let me give Dr. Josh an opportunity to respond to your retort to him.
Yes, Dr. Jeffrey, I hear you loud and clear, and I've been hearing that those sentiments quite a lot, and they have been flung around quite loosely as well. And let me say this: I was on the ground. I would have been sitting in recount station number 8, and I would have heard my friend died, and I would have called him and asked him, "How come you die and you voting?" And he lives right in my area, and there were multiple other persons that I would have met, and we would have proven that what is going on there. There's a conspiracy there to brainwash or something of the sort. But other than that, I would give you the challenge that the election petition is where the beauty of all of this comes in. If your conspiracy is proven to be true, then you should at least convince me by the legislative aspect and make sure that the Chief Justice can find your evidence to be true and your conspiracy to be proven. So far, PNC hasn't been doing well in those arenas, so I'll just leave it as that.
That's why I say, Josh, you can run around with the law and mess around with it, and don't face the numbers, but they are there. And as you said, I'm not quarreling you. There will always be, because when they did do it, they say it's about 90%. But what I am saying to you, you have to deal with the numbers. If it is true, it's on the table. You sitting in Cube 8 or whatsoever you are doing can't account for 5,000 people. You can't.
Trying to figure out how you got to that.
4,600 people. What I am saying,
it was
4,600. You're playing around. You can't. 4,600 and some persons. You can't account for it. And I'm saying to you, you can't run from the numbers. They're there. If you feel like that, you should find some forum to deal with those numbers, because you got to deal with them. You can't hide them by election, by going to court, and the court says, "Oh well, you did not put your minutes in time. You didn't put it in time, and I'm throwing that out."
That's your right. That is why there's a problem with the system. There's a structure set out and there's a protocol set out for an election petition to go forward. Yes. As I'm saying, the election petition will go forward.
I am not denying that. But the election petition go forward or not, you have to deal with the numbers.
Well, the Chief Justice
the Chief Justice said nothing about the numbers so far.
Opinion of
nothing. The Chief Justice has said nothing about the numbers. You gotta deal with the numbers, howsoever you deal with it. Those numbers are on the ground, and until you do so, you have a problem of legitimacy.
Well, if the Chief Justice doesn't, I'm sorry.
So, Professor Jeffrey, Dr. Jeffrey, so far, I have not seen any evidence about any conspiracy between any political party in Guyana and the international forces that you allege to have been involved. So I mean, I don't want to make or give credence to any allegation unless we have some evidence, and those evidence could have been presented in court to show that there was
no, but you can't present it in court if one time the court is saying essentially, "Oh, you brought it late," or maybe you did, maybe you're incompetent, but that don't stop the numbers from being on the ground. The truth is those numbers are there. Those numbers and those irregularities are there, and you can't shout them away. Right? You can't. You have to deal with them.
Yes, okay.
Let
And
that be the last.
as to the international community, they come and they run around and mess around with the election for the more or less for the day. And we don't see, but as I said, election don't get rigged in a day. And secondly,
Can I stop you 1 second? Let's take a break.
yes,
We'll come back, and then
okay,
I'll allow you to continue. So let's
okay,
have a break, and then we'll continue.
okay.
Allfromonesupplier.com has all your grocery needs, plus all of your West Indian items. Purchase all your groceries and all your West Indian items from one place and get free delivery to your homes and free shipping. Allfromonesupplier.com has free deliveries locally in New York and free shipping to all U.S. states. Our shoppers choose the best items packaged nicely and delivered to your home. We have all your grocery needs and all your West Indian items, a one-stop shop. So place all your orders on allfromonesupplier.com or call 718-551-3292. That's online at allfromonesupplier.com or call 718-551-3292. Get all your groceries and all your West Indian items from allfromonesupplier.com with free deliveries and free shipping to all U.S. states. Send your questions, comments, or issues to air on Globespan 24x7. Video or audio message from your phone and WhatsApp it to 631-782-9272. TravelSpan is pleased to announce Curry Duck Curry Punta Cana 2021. Yep, it's TravelSpan Curry Duck Curry with an inclusive vacation, 2-in-1 on August 12th to August 16th. Special performances by Terry Godraj, Sexy Marissa, the Tassamen, and the DJs are all going to Punta Cana on August 12th to August 16th. It's fun, games, party, and curry duck curry at VIK All-Inclusive Resort. All you can eat and all you can drink. TravelSpan has flights from JFK, Newark, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, and Houston directly to Punta Cana. It's TravelSpan Curry Duck Curry and an all-inclusive vacation. It's 2-in-1 on August 12th to August 16th in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. All-inclusive packages include air, hotel, transfers, all meals and drinks from $9.99 persons. TravelSpan Curry Duck Curry is sponsored by allfromonesupplier.com. Dave West Indian. Call TravelSpan at 212-243-0865. That's TravelSpan at 212-243-0865 or book on travelspan.com. Globespan 24x7 continues its efforts to serve the communities. The platform provides for all sides to air their views and discuss solutions. Viewers in Guyana and across the world are participating in these discussions. Globespan's platform offers Guyanese an opportunity to express their concerns and discuss solutions in the political realm, thereby addressing the polarized situation. Discussions also include social ills such as alcoholism, domestic violence, and suicides that have been plaguing the people. The Globespan 24x7 platform connects the diaspora and the world with Guyana. So become a supporter of Globespan 24x7 today by clicking the badge icon on the lower right side of your screen. For only $10 a month, you will be a supporter of Globespan 24x7 initiative and have a badge displayed on your Facebook profile. Help us to continue to serve the communities.
Welcome back, viewers, listeners. You're listening to Globespan 24x7, owned and operated by Mr. Nohar Singh. In the studio is Mr. Devin Bissoon, who's the technical operator. We are discussing political development in Guyana, and in about 15 minutes or so, we'll be talking about political development in New York City, which held elections last week, Tuesday. We are discussing political development in Guyana, and with us tonight is Professor Dr. Henry Jeffrey, Mr. Adam Harris, and Dr. Josh Kanhai. I think we have pretty much exhausted the discussion on allegations of impropriety of the March 2020 election. So I just want to shift a little now, with the limited time we have left, to talk about vaccine politics. And then we have with us a doctor. I don't know if he's involved in any vaccine politics, or if he's administering or managing these vaccines. But you want to give us any update on that, Dr. Josh Kanhai? Oh, you got to break. You're still unmuted.
Yes, as I was saying, I would have been volunteering with the Ministry of Home Affairs and with a few other institutions to administer the vaccine. And I am a pathologist by profession, and so I would just be administering on a volunteer level. However, I've been following closely with the Ministry of Health on the second dose, because that's a question I've been receiving from a lot of persons who would reach out from time to time to ask questions. The second dose is one of the biggest concern for them, because a few of them have passed their 8-week stipulation, and it was rectified on that it was within the 12 weeks for Sputnik. So as the minister would have stated today that no one would have reached that time period as yet. I think some are approaching by next week, so we're looking for some further clarification this week as to when that second dose will be arriving. I've seen we are up at about 21% in with our vaccination schedule.
For both vaccines.
Well, yes, and so it's about 200,000 plus for the first dose and about 110 plus for the second dose, right? So we are moving apace. We are doing quite well regionally, and we are moving at a pace where we are going to outshine some of our Caribbean sisters and brothers, right? I know a lot of persons are saying the biggest controversy was the vaccine price and all of these issues that we were having. Just a few weeks, it was being debated in Parliament, and the issue surrounding that was the arguments were the price and how it was procured, etc. And it was argued and it was put forward. A lot of things were brought to light, and it's still developing, and it would have developed into an area where it was proven that these vaccines did come at a higher price, but they were procured in a good fashion. They were procured in the international standard. Of course, it was from another seller who had the contact with the person selling it. So we did use a middleman per se, but it's our life, and it's a decision that it put us it put us ahead of our other brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, and even some in the South American countries as well, right? So it would have been a good decision by the administration, but I know there's the opposition saying what they have to say as opposition, and I do appreciate them highlighting these circumstances of which a vaccine was procured, etc. So definitely we're moving ahead still, and we're looking forward to that update on the second dose for the Russian vaccine, the Sputnik V.
Okay, and so currently Guyanese are being administered Sputnik, Sinopharm,
and the AstraZeneca.
AstraZeneca, not the other one.
Pfizer.
Covax.
Sinopharm.
There is some Pfizer. Okay.
No, Sinopharm. There were three.
There were three Chinese vaccines.
Mm-hmm. You know, one of the things about the vaccines, and they're all good in their own way. At the start, I fell in love with AstraZeneca, and then you started to read all these things. And then I shifted to Sputnik, and I'm still convinced that Sputnik is the best of all of them. And the thing about it, though, is we have not been able to sell, and it's not only in Guyana, even in the United States. I see a Black community down in, I think it's Texas, now coming up with some new ideas, because a whole lot of things sneaking in. You take it, men get impotent. You take it, you'll die within 2 years. All kind of things you're hearing. The other day, it came out in the US that Moderna and Pfizer created some problem around the heart. I don't know the medical term. We get inflammation around the heart. However, they insist that, well, that's only a small percentage. Yes, there will be side effects. And what I know a lot of people are saying, all right, it's good for you. What about if I am in the small percentage? And that's the problem. We have to really come out with a communication campaign. And we haven't done that. You know, somewhere in the US, for example, they were offering, you take a shot, you get a spliff. And that worked. I don't know that we can offer the kind of incentive in Guyana. So I am saying that we need to have a forum where people can actually ask the questions and get them answered. We haven't done that. So people got the questions and people talk among themselves and what have you. And that is what is causing vaccine hesitancy. And I hope that
is the hesitancy politicized?
I don't think so, you know, because it's more or less worldwide. People have fears. Nobody wants to die. So when somebody hears something, they latch onto it, you know. In the old days in communication, they say one of the hardest things to do is to change someone's opinion. People don't give up opinions lightly. So if people believe that these vaccines are going to hurt them, you got to do something to convince them that that's not the case. I don't have a problem with vaccines, and quite a few people have had the vaccines. We're alive, we don't know down the road if anything will happen, and I don't think anything would happen. But tell that to the average man in the street who's being bombarded, you know. Dr. Josh, for example, he's in a situation where he can attempt to use his influence to get people to be vaccinated. If he tried, I don't know how successful he has been. Some of us have tried, but you always come up with an obstacle. We need a communication campaign. Don't worry with the bland messages. It's either you get what? The thing about you either take the vaccine or you end up dead and all the kind of thing. They're not going to work. I smoke. I mean, I cut down a hell of a lot. You look at the cigarette packs and you see smoking causes impotence. Smoking causes blindness. Smoking can harm your child. You think that's stopping people?
Mm-hmm.
What you need is a campaign that can be subtle and you have incentives. I would like to see 80% of Guyanese vaccinated, but it's just not happening.
But before we move on from this topic, you want anything to say, Dr. Jeffrey?
Well, only to say that everything in Guyana is politicized. Effectively, it cannot do any harm if Guyana is an ethnically driven society. And if the ethnic leaders come out and support an issue, it cannot do harm. It might more likely do good. So if you're going to set up a process to want everybody vaccinated across the board, you have to set up a communication process also. That means that all of these ethnic leaders will come out and speak to their people in a positive way. The way to get that done is not to get on your high horse and start to go and do things by yourself and then leaving them to question price, leaving them to question whether or not the thing has WTO. I think all of that should have been sorted out in a framework so that everybody know when you're going, what you're going to do, and everybody sell that message to their people. But when you go out on your high horse and you do all these things, and then, as Adam said, there are things all over the air. No, and people come out and say, well, look, this thing here is not this, this is not this. We got, wow. You say, those people are terrible, but it's you are terrible. You never set up a proper framework for discussing and moving forward. If you have done it, that would not have happened. You have thought it's not just the social media, it's the way you design your communication. If you have one, how you design your communications to the people, that is the real problem.
Any final comment on that, Dr. Kanhai? I think you're on.
Sorry.
Mute.
It again.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, as I was saying, as a youngster, we're on social. As youngsters, are social media a lot, and I do see quite a lot of cards and a lot of people coming out, a lot of influencers coming out on their social medias and telling people to get vaxxed or get the jab, and I think it was a meme Mr. Adam Harris was referring to with the vaccine versus the coffin, and those guys from the
Right.
you up. Yeah. So I think on that aspect of communication, there are some lacking portions, but I have seen great efforts by the enthusiasts and the other influencers, and even some of the religious leaders would have come out and spoke about the vaccine and to take it and do all sorts of other issues. But so far I've been seeing quite a few persons coming out, so I would like to update you guys on that aspect as well. Also, there's Dr. Mahendra Karpan with the show every afternoon. He has done a couple shows on anti-vaxxing and myths. He's burst a few myths. I noticed a lot of the Marunda is also doing the same. They've talked about vaccine hesitancy, etc. I commend that as well. And all the other shows, there's 94. I think they have every 15 minutes or a part of every day, every 15 minutes, they have a little segment where they do anti-vax facts and myths, etc. So it is out there, and everyone is putting in their efforts, and everyone should be coming together for this pandemic. It shouldn't be politicized. It should be a great effort by mankind to save humanity, and I believe both sides, and even the third force host vaccine campsites or host sites that can make people get an easy access to their vaccines, etc. Right? So I encourage you guys to keep pushing for that organizational flow where the NGOs come in and help us to get more people vaxxed.
Okay, so on that note, let me just point out that I received both of my vaccines. I was exposed to a lot of people who had COVID. I myself never contracted COVID, even though I came into very, very close contact with people, and I didn't have people.
I have both of my vaccines also, and I encourage everybody. It would be madness not to go and have it.
Please.
It's not simple madness to say, and all of this thing. Maybe, but if you die trying to save your life.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. So I invite you all, Dr. Henry Jeffrey, Adam Harris, Dr. Josh Kanhai, please stay with us. I want to share with you an interesting piece of information of a survey that we are doing right now on former President David Granger's leadership. But first, I want to get an update. If you don't mind, I want to get an update from Ms. Felicia Singh, who is joining us now to give us an update about New York City's election, last week's primary. Welcome.
I did point out to you that I might have to leave during this period.
Okay, all right. So we thank you very much for your contribution, Dr.
Yeah.
And I will acknowledge you again later. So, Ms. Felicia Singh, thank you so much for joining us. The other guests who are here on the political development in Guyana, please feel free to ask any questions if you have any to understand the political process in New York. Ms. Felicia Singh, you were a candidate last week in the primary for the district. Is it District 28? Do I have it right?
No, it's District 32.
32, yeah, sorry, District 32 in Woodhaven, in the Woodhaven Queens section of New York City. So you want to tell us a little about last week. You were a very, very successful candidate. You won the first round of votes, and we are now into the second round, as well as we are into counting of absentee ballots. Do you have any update on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, I'd love to introduce myself and thank you all for giving me some space on Globespan 24/7. It's a pleasure to be here again. The last time I was here, I was speaking on the census and how important it was for our communities, our Indo-Caribbean diaspora, our Caribbean diaspora to complete the census. And it's a deep honor to be back again as a candidate for City Council in District 32. District 32 encompasses neighborhoods of Woodhaven, Ozone Park, a small part of Richmond Hill, South Ozone Park, Howard Beach, Broad Channel, and we go all the way to Breezy Point in the Rockaways. This is one of the largest city council districts in Queens. We're also the only Republican city council district in Queens. So not only do I need to become officially victorious in the Democratic primary, but we're looking to do something even more historical, and that is flip the last GOP held seat here in New York City in Queens blue. So this is really exciting. I had the deep honor on election day, June 22nd, that was Tuesday, to be in the lead in our early voting and election day voting. And so currently, Board of Elections is counting votes and opening up absentees and eventually affidavits to officially declare a winner for all New York City elections. We're also running data on ranked choice voting, which is a new voting system that we've adapted here citywide, where you can rank your top 5 candidates from 1 to 5, as opposed to your usual voting where you vote for one person when you go into the ballot. Now voters have the opportunity to rank their top 5 candidates, and that really increases our voter power, because you can choose not only the first person you like, who you think, well, they're my safe choice, but you can actually choose the people who you really actually believe in. And because of ranked choice voting, you see candidates like myself and so many other candidates across New York City in the lead or have won and declared their Democratic primary seat, which is really exciting.
Okay, so just to clarify, you were a candidate to win the nomination of the Democratic Party for district for your district.
No one has been declared a winner yet in this district seat yet, because they're still counting votes. So
right.
No one's a Democratic winner yet. I'm just the person in the lead so far. Hopefully
that's correct. So I was just making the point. The Republicans also had their primary. So whoever wins the primary in each party, and you have to win by 50% plus 1, you become officially the nominee, who will then go on to contest the general elections in November, the first Tuesday of November. And is there any count for your seat or any other seats, including the neighboring seat of Richmond Hill, in today's ranked choice voting, ranked choice counting?
The Board of Elections only ran ranked choice voting today for the mayoral race. Tomorrow they'll be doing the second round of ranked choice voting. It does not include the absentees. Neither did today's votes for mayor. It did not include 124,000 absentee ballots. So I want to make sure that we're all clear that these are all unofficial systems that are happening right now with the Board of Elections. And so nothing won't be officially declared until like another week or 2. So tomorrow they'll be running the second round of ranked choice voting for City Council.
Okay, so today, is it ranked choice 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, no, it'll be 2, 3, 4, and 5 for the mayor's race.
Correct.
I also,
and the comptroller, public advocate as well. So the
you have any updates on that and who's ahead?
Yeah, currently Eric Adams leads with a 51% in ranked choice voting, and Catherine Garcia is just right underneath at almost the same amount of votes. We saw that in this ranked choice voting process that Maya Wiley was eliminated. However, there is a chance of her coming back once the absentee ballots are counted as well or considered.
And that will be done next week.
Yeah, I mean, we don't even know at this point with the way things are going with Board of Elections, but hopefully counting soon, correct.
And do you want to explain a little, how does this ranked choice work? I mean, you talked a lot about it, but
yes, absolutely.
How does it
Sure. So the reason why ranked choice voting was adapted here in New York City is because we wanted more of a democratic process of voting for people in elections. You know, New York City is one of the most diverse cities in all of the United States. Queens is considered one of the world's borough, one of the most diverse places in the nation, actually. And so we don't have people who are representative of our communities. You know, we don't have any city council representation of a person who's Indo-Caribbean or Guyanese at all. So this is a really historical time in our city council to finally elect people who represent their districts demographically, in so many different ways. And so ranked choice voting allows for voters to expand their voter power and vote for more than one person at the same time. And what that really helps us do is it's true that we could like more than one person who are running for office based on their policy platforms, their political identities, their racial identities for identity politics. And it's okay to vote for more than one person. So now when you have the ranking system, what it does is it'll eliminate the bottom two people, the people who are voted and ranked number one the least, and they're crossed off the bottom. And then all the votes are recounted to see who gets the top votes, and then you have 1 and 2. And then with absentee counting, eventually the person who gets 51% of the vote wins their election.
Okay, any questions from our guests from Guyana? Do you think this is something do you think
I'm
this is
interested.
something? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Adam.
Felicia, you're doing well. But what was it like campaigning in, first of all, such a large borough? How did you manage to access so many of the people who supported you?
I really appreciate that question, because campaigning is both joyous and wonderful and exciting and extremely difficult. You know, my city council district in Queens is a district that is so large, I needed hundreds of volunteers. You know, we knocked on more than 25,000 doors. More than 25,000 doors. And had we had more people supporting my campaign earlier on, we would have been leading at a larger margin. But the problem is, and the story of my part of Queens, is that it is owned by the same voting bloc. And that same voting bloc is Democratic moderates who are predominantly white. And so when you have communities of color that are left out of the electoral process and the organizing process, people don't believe that they are needed here. And so they don't come. I am so lucky to have been endorsed by 50 plus progressive organizations here in New York City and in Queens. And I had a few people from about 10 organizations out of those 50 show up and help us knock on doors or call voters or write postcards or help us send mailers or donated, whatever they could do. And I'm so grateful for that. But now that I hopefully will be moving on to the general, I need thousands of people to come and help us knock doors, because in order to make this district democratic again, we need all people to be a part of it.
And just to clarify for our viewers and listeners, the district you ran in as a Democratic to win the Democratic nomination, it is being held, that particular seat is being held by the Republican, I think, for the last 10 years or so. 12 years. So you are trying to undo that to return the seat back to Democratic fold, which will not be easy. Right. And so, yes, you said you need a lot of volunteers. Any other question you have, Adam? Process?
Except to ask that, well, I mean, when we look at it in Guyana, I mean, we have the normal people who would go and campaign a little bit, and you have public meetings and all of that. But how much pressure is there on you to perhaps fund or give some of your volunteer money to more or less motivate them some more?
I think the real...
You got that?
I think I did. You're asking if I have any pressure in making sure that I'm funding some people to come out and support me in the campaign.
Workers, paid workers or volunteers?
Yeah, I have a lot of campaign staff that are paid currently on my campaign when I ran the primary, and that will be true in the November election. We also paid field leads and people to canvass, but folks who we paid are not new people to our campaign. They had been people who had been volunteering for our campaign for a long time, and it's about building that trust and that love. You know, we want people on our team who believe in my message and our message of the community, and those are the people that we help fund as well. I think the real pressure here is that my role as a hopeful Democratic nominee is to serve the people. And in serving the people, that means that I cannot be bought. That means that my authenticity, my messaging, and all the things I stand for are for the justice of all people and for the freedom and liberation of this community. And what I want folks to remember is that the people you elect are people here to serve you. And when they're not doing their job, you need to hold them accountable and show up when they're not.
At what point in time did you decide to run for the nomination of this party in this particular seat?
You know, I had been thinking about it for a long time. I served the United States in the Peace Corps, and I was stationed in China. And while I was in China, I taught at a university there, and I was like, when I come back home, when I'm done with my service, I want to continue service in a whole different way. And I had been teaching for 10 years now as an educator. And so when I came back, I realized the home that I had always been living in, I never knew who made decisions for me. I didn't know who decided when my garbage was going to be picked up. I didn't know who decided where a stop sign goes or how much money our community gets. And the more investigation I did, the more I saw all of the political players, all of the people who own political power in our communities, they don't look like any of us. Nobody like us is in the room. And I said, I had two choices that day. I could have left the space and said, you know what, I'm uncomfortable. There's no one here like me. I feel isolated. Or I could lean in here and decide that I'm gonna own political power too, and I'm gonna bring people with me, and that's what I did. So in 2019, I finally filed to run for office.
You would know today, I believe the city budget was passed.
Yes.
It's like about what, 6 months late, and it is a huge budget, $98 billion. It's the
Right.
largest budget perhaps for any city, and certainly for New York City. It's the largest budget in its history. And so
No, I think
hopefully,
California has a larger budget.
LA, probably, maybe. I don't know what's LA's budget.
Right,
but-
first
Yeah. So hopefully we will get some of that $98 billion come into our districts as well, because for years, Richmond Hill, Flatbush, Ozone Park, Woodhaven, these are all changing communities, and they have been neglected, marginalized. I mean, Adam, you've lived, not quite lived here, but you spent considerable amount of time in New York City, and you would have known that these communities of color, they've been marginalized, neglected. They don't get their due resources.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Absolutely. Ozone Park, Richmond Hill, we could be at such a better place than we are right now. And honestly, and this is something I've always talked about when I talk about the budget, our New York City budget, just like any budget of any country or any city or any town, is a budget of values. Where you spend your money, where a government decides to pour their money, tells you who has value and who has no value at all. And so our New York City budget for a long time has been a budget that is not about the service of the people, the social services of the people, the wellness, the healing, the justice of people. It has been consistently over time, depending on who's in city council, a fight between political power and the people. There's no budget justice. We saw that with this budget that was just passed, our NYPD got $200 million. And at the same time, we also got a little bit more money for health and hospitals, which is our public health hospital system here in New York City. But we don't, on the peninsula of Rockaway, a part that I represent, we only have one hospital to thousands of people, one hospital.
And overcrowding schools, maybe?
And overcrowded schools, you know, we could have really been pushing for mental health services, all of these things that help really bring people up and uplift them. And what I want people to understand is that this new cohort of city council candidates that are about to take office come January 1st, 2022, we have to now sit with this budget that was just approved and figure out how we're going to represent our communities with a budget we did not decide on.
If I may ask, how would you describe your experience in running for office?
I would say I would say that it took a lot of deep courage to run for office. Running for office is leading with courage. It is standing your ground in who you are, what your story is, and what you believe is right for your community. No matter if people disagree, you have to trust the process of who you are and trust the people you bring into your campaign too. I was so lucky, so lucky to not just have parents who believed in my cause all the way from beginning to end, but also a campaign team that's full of people who are LGBTQ, who are mothers, who are Black, who are Indo-Caribbean, who are Latinx, that really believed in the story and the vision of our community, that one that has not been built before by anyone else. And because of that bravery, because of that courage, we got to where we are, and hopefully we will be victorious.
I hope so too. Anything else you want to say about running for New York City? I mean, what's your message to youngsters who may look at this and say it's something for them?
I would say, well, first I would say, I think our Indo-Caribbean diaspora, no matter where you live in the world or in New York or in Queens, we believe that politics is not for us. And we believe that, oh, I don't want to get political. That's too much drama. But everything you have and everything you do not have is a political decision made by somebody else that is not you. Again, I'm going to say that again. Everything you have and everything you don't have is a political decision made by somebody else that's not you. Get involved in your community. You don't have to ask anyone permission to do what you think is right in your neighborhood, on your block, in your home, in your town. Really uplift nonprofits and organizers that live in your community. Know that you have a voice and political power no matter where you are in the world, and that people have always taught us that we have none, and we cannot believe that, you know. And then of course, make sure you are keeping yourself safe. Get vaccinated. We want to be a thriving community. We need to take care of ourselves, our health, and the health of our loved ones. So please get vaccinated. And if you want to join my campaign or support in any way, you can find me at Felicia2021.com.
Yeah, before I'll let you go, just to clarify, there are so many different electoral posts in New York City. There are elections to the City Council, there's election to New York State Assembly, New York State Senate, and there is election to the members of Congress, and then there is also the U.S. Senate election. And of course, you have the mayoral contest that will be resolved hopefully in 2 weeks for the primary, and then the general election in November. And then we have the governor election, I think, which is next year, if I'm not mistaken. So there's so many elections, there's so many ways to get involved, so many opportunities to even run for office.
Right.
Any final word from you before we sum up?
No, it was great to be here. Thank you again. My website's Felicia2021.com. When we win this Democratic primary, I need you to show up for this community. Indo-Caribbeans live here. The Indian diaspora lives here. So many people have been marginalized that finally want to be seen live in our communities. And my win is a win for everyone. And I want us to remember that. So thank you so much for having me on the show, and I hope to be back again.
Thank you, Felicia, for taking time off to join us this evening. It's been an honor to have you. Thank you.
Great. Right. Take care.
And if I may also now thank our two other guests from Guyana. If you have any final words, we got a few minutes left. Mr. Adam Harris, perhaps the most experienced senior journalist in Guyana. I don't think anyone has put in more time currently than you've almost 50 years in the profession.
I know.
What are your thoughts and comments on Ms. Singh running for office, as well as the politics in Guyana?
I can tell you, Ms. Singh made some very interesting and touching statements. The part about people making decisions for you. You know, immigrants on the whole were not treated fairly because the white American believe that America is, and we're there to work for him and develop him. And what you're doing is actually breaking ground. And there are people who are going to follow you. You know, we had to start somewhere. And you have taken that step and you seem to be doing very well. I haven't been in New York for more than a year because of COVID. And I'm familiar with your constituency, very familiar. And it's a little more than Indo-Caribbean, because I also know that with your stepping forward, there are Black people like me in that area who are going to support you because they themselves felt marginalized. They had to deal in cases with the police operation, and they had little or no say. And you are giving those people a voice. I have relatives there. You are giving them a voice. And that is very, very, very interesting. Hopefully next year I might be brave enough to step back over.
Okay.
But I'm glad. I'm glad for what you're doing. I really appreciate it, and I wish to God that thing. You know, Bisram, you should do a column on it. You can do a piece on it. You know.
Yes, I will. I do plan to. In fact, I did write and I did endorse Ms. Felicia Singh just before the elections. But listen, she was not the only Guyanese female who ran. There was Dolly Willibus who ran in Brooklyn. I don't know. I don't think she did as well as Ms. Felicia Singh. But I just want to relay this information and get your brief response to it, Adam, as well as Dr. Josh Kanhai. At the beginning of the program, we talked about yourself and the other two speakers, including Professor Henry Jeffrey, about authoritarian tendencies of Mr. David Granger. And while we were having conversations in the program, a snap poll was conducted, internet poll, and the response was 81% agree that David Granger has authoritarian tendencies and 19% don't feel that way. What's your view on that? Adam and then Josh.
The 81% could be right because, as we said earlier in our program, our leaders tend to be dictatorial. I don't know if Josh would agree with me, but that's the tendency across all. I am the one I say goes, and you don't like, leave. The problem that David Granger is that young Turks have their teeth in the bit, and they're going to more or less sideline him. I mean, I talked about charismatic leaders in the days of Burnham and Jagan and all of that. Nobody would have attempted to raise their head to challenge. It's an entirely different ballgame. I don't think David Granger will be the leader of the party. I really don't. Some young is going to come forward because David Granger played his card. He lost the elections. People are angry with him and all of that. And they're going to reject him for that. It happened to Donald Ramotar, if you remembered. Donald Ramotar was sidelined pretty quickly because of that. And that's...
Dr. Kanhai, any final comments on that, on that particular unscientific survey? But it gives, I think, a general trend of how people view David Granger.
Oh, it's a simple random sample, and it's quite random what you guys do. So, I suppose those do say a lot. Before I continue, I would like to say congratulations to Ms. Singh on an excellent job in procuring the nation not the nation, but that city and that entire block. And I think your message was quite exuberant, and it was quite refreshing to hear that some young person has a similar story to that of mine, and many other young people that has stepped up since last year 2020 election in Guyana. So definitely congratulations. Hopefully we can talk soon about this ranking system, because it's a system that Guyana will not see for now. I'll be honest, because there's a lot of constitutional changes that has to be done in order for such a federal system, to be adopted, right? And that by far is a system I would have supported. I would have written several pieces on it for the manifesto of the new movement, and it's something that Guyana can look forward to once the third force and some of the young minds can come forward and put it together, right? Other than that, back to your poll, I think the Brigadier has gone rogue for quite a while, and that's as much I can say. I hope what Mr. Adam Harris said, that a young one will come up and take lead of that party. It's quite a mature 50 years old. They have a footprint, they have a vision, they have things that they want to put forward. So I hope that someone can take that challenge and go forward with it.
I'm always in favor of you. Look, I want to thank the three of you and Professor Henry Jeffrey, Dr. Josh Kanhai, Ms. Felicia Singh, Mr. Adam Harris. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us tonight, June 30th, the last program for this month of Globespan 24/7, owned and operated by Mr. Nohar Singh, with our technical skilled personnel, Mr. Devin Bisoon. Again, thank you and good evening.
Thank you. Good night.